Trento once again coming to you on TrentoVision.TV and on the radio side, WNN 1470. Welcome all our friends, our family, our partners, and even our enemies. Yeah, I guess we got a few enemies out there. Whenever, ladies and gentlemen, you take a stand on principle in this world, guess what? Sometimes you're called a hater. And all of this week, we've been looking at an organization that merchandises, that runs their operation by projecting this concept of hate on a group and then going to their dumb donors and saying, oh, those people are hateful, send us some money. And send money have the dumb donors done. To the tune of about $250 million. Did you hear what I said? I didn't say $250 million, which is a lot of money. $250 million with a B, $250 million plus dollars are stuffed in the mattress of the Southern Poverty Law Center. You know, I choke on the word poverty when I say Southern Poverty Law Center. How could you have the audacity to keep the name Southern Poverty Law Center when you have $250 million? You're going to hear from our special guest today in a little bit. A woman who's written extensively on the Southern Poverty Law Center and done some investigative research into their finances by all the organizations that rate charity. This is a charitable organization with $250 million. By all the key organizations that grade other charities, the Southern Poverty Law Center has just simply failed. It gets a failing grade in terms of what it does with its money and its ratio of spending money for its stated purpose versus in amenities and salaries and all of that. So, but you know, in a sense, here today on TrentoVision.TV at just a couple of minutes past 5 o'clock on Thursday, the 25th. Wow, it's the 25th of April already. How are you doing with your New Year's resolutions? You sticking with those things? Got to stick with them. Have you lost the weight you thought you would? You can, if you fell off that horse, just get back on. You can do it. And if you want to join with us and try to alert America to the diabolical and devious nature of the Southern Poverty Law Center, you can also do that. We've placed the call to these folks in Montgomery, Alabama, and we asked for someone to come on our show, live on our show, to answer some of the charges and claims we have against them. But, Damon, have we heard from them yet?
Have not heard back.
Oh, can you place another call later on today?
I most certainly will.
We'll try to get them for our tomorrow, Friday show, the 26th. Okay?
That would be fantastic.
Great, great. You're with Tom Trento and CJ, and we will see SEECJ, letter CJ, in just a little bit. But right now, we want you to know about our 5-part investigative series. It's on the Southern Poverty Law Center, and it's very important, folks, because this organization now has taken to identifying traditional Christian organizations that have been traditional family-oriented, Christian morality-oriented, Judeo-Christian worldview-oriented. And if you disagree with the worldview, the horrible, horrible worldview of the Southern Poverty Law Center, then de facto you must be a hater simply because you oppose them. So they've now started to list traditional Christian organizations, and you're going to hear from one today and one tomorrow, identified them as a hate group. Now, understand what we're saying. In this economy today, in this world today, in America, the integrity of the First Amendment is critical, And we are not denying the Southern Poverty Law Center's right to speak freely and to do all the crazy stuff they do. We are raising an alert, a red flag to citizens, because now we have an implication between the Southern Poverty Law Center's identification of an organization, Family Research Council, and the motivation of a terrorist, of a convicted terrorist, someone who has been convicted of domestic terrorism, Floyd Corkins. We have a relationship as to why he chose Family Research Council and what his goal was in choosing Family Research Council. We're going to show you an FBI video, short video, about 20 seconds, a little later. It's an interview with Floyd Corkins. And in the interview, he tells exactly where he saw Family Research Council, why he selected them, and you'll see the implication of the Southern Poverty Law Center in the domestic terrorism conviction that occurred August 15th of last year, 2012. We have looked the first couple of days. Tony Perkins we had on Monday. Are you all buttoned up and buckled in?
Yeah, except for the camera is
we're on the one shot. We can come to this.
No, the one shot has me.
Oh, has your
my arm,
floating arm? That's
yeah,
okay.
my floating arm,
Well,
my floating computer.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Hi. Your shirt matches my computer.
Wow.
Did you plan that?
Usually we do.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We got that psychic thing going on. I thought you were going to wear the black check.
The black check one? No,
yeah.
I just once in a while you got to wash these things, you know. It was the third Thursday or whatever it was.
Tom and I have this thing where we're always within a day of each other of wearing the same shirt.
With no planning.
With no planning.
No, it's amazing.
It just happens.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's psychic. So in any event, we had on Monday we had Tony Perkins. Tuesday we had Peter Sprigg from Family Research Council. Tony laid out the overview of the horrendous developments in the Southern Poverty Law Center. Peter Sprigg touched on the homosexual issue, and now if you're pro-traditional marriage, you are de facto anti-gay, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Peter Sprigg worked on that with us. Yesterday, Wednesday the 24th, we had General Jerry Boykin, a hero, American hero and military hero, and David Raboy from the Center for Security Policy on the Muslim Brotherhood and SPLC's collaboration with many of these jihadist organizations, either as a front PR group or as a back-end support entity for Islamic terrorism, which is our bailiwick.
Yeah.
We here at TrentoVision, the United West, we focus in on Islamic jihad, on national security. So our show yesterday was on the areas that we primarily work on. But and we are listed, right, CJ?
Yeah, we are.
By the wonderful SPLC, Southern Filthy Rich Law Center.
That's
we are listed as a hate group because we are viewed as...
we hate terrorism, therefore we're on the hate list.
Yeah, we're on the hate list. And that's interesting. We hate terrorism. We fight terrorism. They view us as a hate group because they view us as anti-Muslim. They must believe that Muslims are terrorists. Otherwise, they wouldn't make that connection.
That's right. And all swans are black.
Interesting. All right. Today, before we go to our special guest, do we have our guest with us yet? Okay, we do. Before we go there, we want to show you a shocking video, an astonishing video. And as you know, the week before, the week of the 15th, we were all over the Boston bomber massacre in Boston. And on day 2, the 16th of April, we broke the story that Inspire magazine was probably the place where they got their ideas, their equipment, all of that.
Yeah.
And right now, CNN...
I know, I was watching it last night.
They're only a week behind.
Yeah, they're way behind us. But you know, that happens all the time.
This is what we do. But yesterday, a video came out of Dzhokhar Sarnev and Tamerlan Sarnev's mama. Did you see Mama?
Oh, she's a sweet thing, isn't she?
Now, the audio is a little tough to track. So those of you watching on TrentoVision.tv, you'll see the captions But she actually speaks pretty good English, but she's in an excited state. This is a 20, 30-second video that CNN is turning over a new leaf. It's really amazing. This is a very short video that CNN, it was a phone interview CNN did with the mother. All been confirmed. This is a real video. You gotta listen. You gotta listen to what the mama says, and then we'll talk about this at the end of our show, toward the end part. But right now, let's go to CNN's interview of Mama Sarnev.
They're gonna kill him. They're gonna kill him. I don't care. My oldest one is killed, so I don't care. I don't care if my youngest one is gonna be killed today. So I want the world to hear this, and I don't care if I am gonna get killed too. Okay? And I will say Allahu Akbar.
Okay, then.
Had you seen that? No, you haven't seen that. Give me your first impression, CJ. If we can get CJ on here.
Oh, no.
CJ.
She reminds me of the mamas of the Palestinian suicide bombers.
Yeah, it's almost the same script that they're reading off of.
Yeah.
I mean, she said, look, man, they killed my first son. I don't care if they kill my second son. I don't care if they kill me. And what does she close with?
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
Not God is great. In Arabic, it's God is greatest. God is greatest.
Allah is.
Yeah, Allah is greatest.
Allah is
yeah.
the greatest
There's a
amongst the
difference
gods
amongst the
because
gods.
because
panoply.
That's right.
When you get angry or you run about your day, you scream Allahu Akbar by any chance?
No.
Or you've avoided that?
Yeah.
Boring. You're so boring.
Yeah, I know.
love to say it.
Yes. Yeah, Imam Abdullah, is that something you say?
Every day, many times.
Oh, yeah, good. Well, what I have learned in my work on these issues is national security stuff. When somebody's screaming Allahu Akbar, like major,
I duck.
Yeah, you duck is what you do. You get out of the way, you know. All right, but we're gonna take a little better look. My audio got a little.
How did they get in
reverb
the
there.
country to begin with? Does anybody know that? Why did we let this lady in to begin with?
Well,
Political refugees.
Yeah, the Southern Poverty Law Center, I'm sure, will weigh in on this. But before we go into, I want to take another look at the video that you just saw later on. But right now we have with us, just for a short time, we have a special guest, Charlotte Allen. And Charlotte Allen is a freelance writer, an investigative writer. I read a significant piece she did in the Weekly Standard. I think you had sent it to me at
Yes.
one point on the Southern Poverty Law Center. And Charlotte is one of these writers that digs and digs and digs and digs and gets to the bottom of stuff and connects dots.
Yeah.
So we wanted to get her on today, and we have her by phone, I believe. Charlotte, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, and I'm flattered at your description of my work.
Well, you have come highly recommended to us by many of the folks that are doing a lot of work on the Southern Poverty Law Center. You can't see us. We have a picture of you up, and there's I'm in here with CJ, my co-host. CJ, say hello to Charlotte.
Hi, Charlotte. Good to meet you.
Oh, hi.
I like your articles.
Hi, oh, well, thank you.
Okay.
I wrote that article, of course, before the Boston bombing, and it
Right.
deals almost not at all with Muslims and what the SPLC has to say about them. So I can't even comment on that. What I focused on most was the way the SPLC raises money and how much money it's managed to raise.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this as we get started. You've written on a whole host of things. You're a was a novelist? The book you wrote?
No, it actually was a piece of history of the last 2 centuries. It's called The Human Christ,
The Human Christ,
Search
yeah.
for the Historical Jesus, and it's about how scholars over the last couple of centuries have looked for and found exactly the Jesus they wanted, depending on what their ideological proclivities were. They tended to find a Jesus who was just like them. Basically, if my book could be summed up in those words, that's it.
Yeah. So I mean, our hats are off to anyone who writes a book. It's such a gargantuan task. But you're a very eclectic writer. You know, we've looked at your work, and you're published in many very significant outlets, newspapers, websites. What the heck made the SPLC come up on your radar?
Yeah.
Well, I think that it was the whole irony of the Floyd Corkins shooting and the fact that he had gotten the name of the Family Research Council off of the SPLC's list of hate groups. And there was something very ironic about somebody who was distinctly committing a hate crime getting the name of his victim and its and a map off of the SPLC's website. And I had also a few months before gone to a conference that featured a speech by Heidi Byrick, who is the intelligence director for the SPLC. And she was going through this list they have of hundreds and hundreds of hate groups. And there was something very ironic and funny about it, because she focused a lot on these groups, these white supremacist groups that the SPLC claims to have unearthed. And so you'd see a photo up on the screen of like a couple of guys sitting around a kitchen table, or she would describe a lawsuit against the Ku Klux Klan back in the 80s when the Klan was practically defunct, one of their famous lawsuits. So they got this judgment against this Klan unit for $7 million because someone had beaten to death a young black man. And, of course, there were no assets at all. This group had, like, this crummy old warehouse that was sold for $52,000. So that's all the money that the mother of this dead kid got. But at the same time, the SPLC managed to raise about $9 million in donations just by sending out pictures of this young man's body with a lot of prose about what a deadly threat the Klan still is. Watch out, Klansmen are waiting in the hills to lynch blacks and Jews. And so they would send these letters to these wealthy contributors, many of them Jewish, many not, and these people who the SPLC people describe as kind of 1960s liberals who think we're still back in the days of people riding around with wearing white sheets. So they'd send in this money. It's a fundraising technique that just can't lose and hasn't. I mean, they now have $256 million in assets. Those are assets.
Wait, Charlotte, wait a minute. How much money does the Southern Poverty Law Center have on
Law
here?
Center have $256 million just in assets that are being stockpiled, not being spent on anything, being invested. And so about every 10 years now, that amount of assets has doubled.
Wow.
So it's now at this amazing $256 million figure, very little of which is spent because their annual budget is way down, like in about the 26 million area.
Right.
So every year they take in more money than they spend, and they sit around with this money, which is something that philanthropic organizations do not approve of. There's a group called Charity Watch that rates organizations on how much money they spend to raise money and how much of the money that they raise gets actually spent on what they're supposed to be spending on it. And the Southern Poverty Law Center has gotten an F rating year after year because it has this huge, much more money than they would ever need to tide them over. It's a shocking situation. I mean, if you're a liberal and you want to support a liberal cause like gay rights or whatever, or the rights of black people or immigrants or whatever, I mean, the Southern Poverty Law Center is not where you want to spend your dollars.
Too.
Yeah.
By the way, if I may interrupt for a moment here,
what?
conservatives support individuals as well. They support civil rights for all Americans.
Sure.
It's not just a liberal issue.
Well, yeah.
No,
exactly.
not at all.
But
in fact, I mean, the ACLU, for example, which is known for its general support of liberal causes, of which conservatives don't approve many of them, but there are some areas where conservatives are right on board, such as free speech on campuses and elsewhere. So civil rights is not a partisan issue.
Well, let me ask you this. This is Tom. The amount of donations coming in, it would seem to me, you know, if the demographics of their donor base is this, you know, 60s pot smoking, protesting, Volvo driving, Earth Day loving, you know, hippie who's was a trust fund baby, or you know he got involved with his friend in cutting a lawn, and one thing led to another. Now they got a gigantic construction company. They made a lot of money. They're philanthropic. It would seem to me that once they find out that this organization, not flush with cash, you know, our organization, the United West, is a 501c3. It's a non-profit educational organization.
Extremely non-profitable.
You know, and we worry about paying the bills, not figuring out how to invest our assets. But once a sentient donor would know that Southern Poverty Law Center has $250 million, why the heck would anybody send them money? What's in the psyche of?
That's a good question, because in fact, for years, I mean, for almost 20 years, various liberal progressive publications have been complaining about the SPLC, have been writing about the fact that money that could go to smaller organizations that really need the money instead goes to the SPLC. I mean,
Right.
this has been a constant complaint among liberal progressives. The SPLC, for some reason, nobody gets that message. I mean, just as early as last year, Morris Deese, the SPLC's founder, and basically the guy who thought up all this direct mailing, this alarmist direct mailing, got a huge award from the American Bar Association. He got their highest honor, their ABA medal. So for some reason, the news doesn't seep out, even though magazines such as The Nation, a very left-wing magazine, or Harper's, also very liberal, have been writing about this stuff for years, but no one seems to get the message. I think it's because Deese himself is a master. He's a master of promotion, of self-promotion, of favorable publicity. He, as you probably know, was a direct marketing millionaire back in the late 60s. He was already out of college just a few years. He had figured out effective ways to sell stuff, cookbooks, doormats, whatever, and then got into politics and decided that he could use those same skills.
You're making our
effectively
crew,
there.
Charlotte, you're making our crew laugh here with his
He's an amazing man. I mean,
his
you have
array,
to give
yeah.
him credit.
No, yeah,
He turned around, for example, he turned around the McGovern campaign, which was hurting for money. He basically lent the campaign a couple of his millions and wrote this 7-page alarmist letter about what's going to happen to all our civil liberties if Richard Nixon gets a second term. We're going to all end up in jail or whatever, and blacks are going to be forced to the back of the bus and so forth. I mean, just amazing. He wrote this 7-page letter, turned it into the campaign people for McGovern. They said, no way, we want to send a short, succinct, 2-page letter telling people why they ought to contribute. He said, oh, well, I'm going to send out my letter anyway. And he ended
Right.
up raising $24 million in 1971, which was,
that's
what,
huge.
about a fourth of what that would be in today's dollars.
Yeah,
Just with this 7-page letter, he realized that if you send out this very dramatic, lengthy, dramatic narrative with photographs and prose, purple prose, you can raise a lot of money. And he got McGovern's mailing list, of course, reliable American liberals, probably the same people who are still the core of the SPLC's mailing list to this day.
I bet you, yeah.
And he's been doing this ever since. And he's been, at first it was Klan all the way, because that always somehow, just mentioning those guys in the white sheets, somehow just opens people's wallets up here in the North. And so he's lately branched down, and that's why he's gotten into things like gay rights. He figures that, well, a lot of gays are successful professionals, so there's some money. All you have to do is start talking about the war against gays or whatever, and there's another money source for you.
And it's really a beautiful marketing concept, a business concept, because you find a market that has money, and
Right.
and the gay community has money. I mean, that's what the demographers and advertisers tell us. And so you're going to take money from them, but in return, that market wants you defending them because you have this sort of historic civil rights prestigious label. So it's a beautiful Faustian deal.
It's
you know?
it's this market doesn't want them to defend them. It wants them to promote a radical agenda on their behalf.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing through their school programs and everything else.
And and also the list of hate. The hate list, and which is basically a marketing tool in itself.
Exactly.
And of course, one of the problems and the reason that they've stockpiled so much money is they don't really file a lot of lawsuits. They have a list of, I think, just like about 16 suits filed last year and maybe one this year. I mean, for a big organization that has something like 34 lawyers, they don't do an awful lot of legal work, which of course keeps their costs down. So they spend much more money on fundraising, telemarketing, communications of various kinds than they ever do on their lawsuits.
Right. Charlotte, can I ask you something here related to that? Because I'm looking at your article here on where you're describing the information from their 2011 tax returns. And it says here that aside from salaries, the SPLC only spent $1.6 million on litigation-related costs for 2011. And I'm wondering if that's part of why they're able to, part of the reason why they need that big war chest, because anybody would look at that and just be intimidated and say, okay, I'm a school district in Missouri or Alabama or wherever I am, or I'm an individual or a corporation. I'm not going up against $250 million to defend myself. I'll just roll over and do whatever it is you want me to do. Publicly or privately, cut a deal and write you a check and whatever it is and make a public statement and then leave us alone, go away. And they keep getting to roll the money over and over and over, and they get to fundraise off that. Look at the success we just had. We rolled over a school board in Missouri or wherever it was. And you need to keep funding that.
Yeah, there was their gay bullying suit. Apparently, some students had committed suicide, and so the SPLC promptly sued them. Of course, the school district didn't have money to litigate a lengthy case, whether it was responsible for those suicides or what it should have done better. Apparently, it already had a toleration program that required students to be treated equally, but the ACLU pressed for, basically, I think, from what I've read, basically pressed for a much more of an indoctrination course so that, you couldn't draw any sort of distinction between gays and heterosexuals. And of course the school board rolled over because it didn't want to spend a lot of money and agreed to adopt this program. That settlement was reached within months of the suit being filed.
That's ridiculous, too. It's never heard of. Let me ask you this, Charlotte. Your deep dive into their finances, you saw that Mars Dees is the highest paid individual. I think there's 200 employees, 34 lawyers. He's making like $345, $350 as a base salary.
Living in a nice little cottage too.
Yeah. Now he was a wealthy guy coming to this, so he made his money in the free market.
Probably entitled to
Yeah. But have you found, again, I've been running nonprofits for a long time, 25, 30 years, and you have two types of donors. You have the dear older person who's committed to the cause, and they write a $10, maybe $25 check, every month, every other month, and they're doing it out of their measly savings because they really like what you're doing and they want to help. But then there is the more philanthropic people who write the larger checks, $1,000, $2,000, whatever it may be. Have you seen any distinction in the revenue stream? You said they're bringing in about 25, 26 million now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think even more like about 38, 39 million.
All right, well, $1 million a year is $3,000 a day. So if you're bringing in 40 million, 3 times 4 is $120,000 a day they're bringing in. $120,000 a day. Who's sending that money in? Is it big George Soros's checks, or where's it coming from?
I do not think that there are that large individual donors. There might be. I didn't really look into their donor base, but there probably are some Soros types or Hollywood moguls or others, maybe some Silicon Valley money that goes to the SPLC. But a lot of that money actually comes from small donors. I mean, that was one of the scandals, and it was one of the reasons why during the mid-'80s, the entire legal staff of the SPLC quit, because they really didn't care for DESA's fundraising techniques. He would send around, some poor lady would say, I decided not to buy a coat this winter and give the money, like my $100 or whatever, to the SPLC instead. And DES was touting this as a wonderful thing, and so all these lots of little people who, I guess, thought that the SPLC was fighting the good fight for their civil rights. I'm sure a lot of black people, for example, thought that the SPLC was really the group to support, because they had actually during the 70s, actually they had gotten some worthwhile lawsuits filed. So, and of course the Ku Klux Klan was another big seller. So there were a lot of little people, and I suspect now, I mean, I think that their donor base is probably people who are fairly well off, so they're not sending checks like for $10, but maybe like, a few hundred, a few thousand. But that can add up pretty fast.
It adds up very fast.
You only need 120 people sending a check for $1,000, and you've got your $120,000.
You got your $120,000 for the day. All right, we've established so far here at 31 minutes past 5 o'clock on Thursday, the 25th of April, on TrentoVision.TV and simulcasting on the radio, WNN 1470 AM on your dial in Boca Raton. We're with Charlotte Allen, who is a investigative journalist, has looked into the Southern Poverty Law Center. We've established very professionally and analytically that the Southern Poverty Law Center are a bunch of dirt bags, basically. Okay? That's what we've established. They're a scam organization that is trading on its positive beginnings. They weren't even positive in many respects, but on the liberal and civil rights sensibilities that often aren't connected to the brain in many, many people. We've established that. But Charlotte, let's take a ride now from Montgomery to Washington, D.C., the subject at hand, Floyd Corkins and his identification.
Before we get to Floyd, do we have a couple of minutes to just bring up some background of how he came into it by way of, I want to talk about a little bit, if you could,
we got about,
because he interviewed Mark Potok, and I wanted to know.
She did?
Yeah, and I wanted to know if you could just tell us a little bit of how does the Southern Poverty Law Center put together its hate group list to begin with, and then we could talk about
don't
how
hold your breath, okay?
Floyd Corkins
how does that happen?
to find that information. But who makes the list? How do they make it? How do they get on? How do they get off? Etc.
Well, it seems that their criteria are pretty loose. In fact, rumor seems to play a heavy role, I would say, because they list a lot of groups of hate groups and militia groups. They're very into militias. And then other people who have also been tracking hate groups try to find them, such as police officers, the FBI. They apparently seem all too willing, the SPLC, to find and name some group that might have a website or it might have a post office box, and then throw it onto the list. And it could be like two guys. And in fact, there's a pretty well-known sort of freelance investigator of militia and hate groups named Laird Wilcox, who's been doing this stuff for 40 years, and the FBI calls him up. He started out, it was kind of a hobby of his, putting together these lists of groups. And so the FBI would call him up and ask him, well, how about this group? And he would say, I don't even know whether that group exists. Because so often they would just throw, if they could find a name anywhere, they'd put it on the list. And of course,
that's unbelievable. It really is.
That's great. They could say like, well, the number of militias in the United States has grown by 30% just in the
Right.
last 2 years.
Right.
And
Send
of
us
course,
more money. We need more money to fight the militias.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. We're your bulwark against these armed militias. And of course they might be like 2 guys or 1 guy
Right.
or or somebody's or an alias name for another organization, a paper affiliate.
Right.
It didn't really matter. And their criteria for adding groups such as the Family Research Council seem even more suspect, because they claim that they did not put the Family Research Council on the list because they have a Christian belief that homosexual activity is wrong and so forth. They say they do not. They said, I interviewed Mark Potok myself, and he said specifically that they don't put groups on the list because of their interpretation of Scripture. But they do put them on just because they'll cite some studies saying that, for example, they've cited the FRC has cited scholarly studies indicating that, for example, pedophiles are represented in outsized proportions among homosexual men. That is, there are many more homosexual predators per capita than there are heterosexual.
Convicted.
Yes.
Yes.
And so the FRC, the Family Research Council, will cite these studies and say, look, the evidence indicates that they really are more likely to be pedophiles. And the SPLC will simply blanket that out and say, well, we have some studies that show the opposite. Well, maybe they do, but
Right.
that doesn't mean that the Family Research Council is acting in bad faith. That is, it's acting out of hate for homosexuals.
Exactly.
It's got research that seems to be scientifically reliable, published in peer-reviewed scholarly journals that support their position.
Right.
When I asked Potok about this by email, he just said, "Well, they're promulgating hate and discrimination against homosexuals."
Now, did you interviewed him by email, or did you sit down with him?
I did both. I didn't
Okay.
sit down with him. I did all my interviews on the phone, but
Yeah.
I did talk to him at length. And then I sent him some follow-up questions after he had told me about their website, and he had said that they relied on some studies that actually aren't too scientific. So, of course, I went to the Family Research Council website to see whether what Mark Potok had told me checked out, and I found something quite different. I found reputable scholars. I did not find advocacy groups, but scholars who had actually done some research work.
Did you find reputable scholarly works on behalf of the SPLC's positions?
Well, I did find, yes, I found some studies. I never looked at any of the actual studies. I'm not a social scientist, so I can't evaluate the studies. They've got studies. They've got a statement by the American Psychological Association, or one of the professional groups, which I don't think counts for much because those statements tend to be advocacy.
Charlotte, we're starting to run out of time a little bit here, but
Sorry.
it's similar to expert witnesses at a trial. If you got $250 million, you can find any kind of expert you want to write
Right.
whatever you want with any
Right.
5 PhDs, behind their name. And they have to fight people like FRC's academic research, otherwise they're going to be out of business. We got about a minute or two left with you. The situation at FRC with Floyd Corkins.
Yes.
If you could, hang on. If you, Damon, can come to my screen. Oh, I got to put my thing on here. I got to show you one little item that's very, very interesting. And you just mentioned it a bit earlier. You should have me there now. How about now? Am I popping up? We're trying to get my screen because I'm going to show you something. Okay. Good. There we go.
There we go.
All right. If you're looking at my screen on TrentoVision.tv, if you're listening on the radio, I'm showing the website of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and this is their hate map. And that's the hate map of Washington, D.C. They have 14 hate organizations, and you can drill down here and zero in and get right to their street and all of that. They list it for you. And then they have the different organizations. And you can see right here, oops, right there, the Family Research Council. And if you click on that link, it takes you into a study of why these people are haters. And they're haters. They go under the anti-gay category of hate. White nationalists, black separatists, anti-Muslim, anti-gay. We have been listed as anti-Muslim, Charlotte, we, the United West. And we have not found one listing of any terrorism organization that has either become an unindicted co-conspirator in a terrorism case or been convicted in a terrorism case. They don't deal with that, as we said before, which is our primary area of study. But on Floyd Corkins, what have you found the connection between SPLC? We got about a minute left to do this, and the shooting on 15 August 2012.
Well, I mean, Corkins himself said that he found this group at another traditional values group, which he was also going to assault. He found it through the SPLC. I mean, he found it on their list of hate groups. Decided, well, they got to be hateful, so he then resolved to assassinate the staff. So it's a really it's a really ironic development, and although I don't think that you can blame the SPLC specifically or legally for inciting, the SPLC didn't incite Corkins to commit his crime, but certainly, I mean, there's a kind of implicit invitation. These are people you ought to hate. Basically, their list of hate groups is a list of people whom the SPLC would like other people to hate.
Right.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating issue because in this case it was almost Leo Johnson got shot, the building manager. I saw his arm, his mangled arm. And incitement is a legal doctrine, and certainly SPLC did not incite in the way the courts have interpreted incitement. But there is a connection, and we want to raise the American awareness. But I'll give you 30 seconds to make a closing statement. Then we got to sadly we got to let you go. This has been great, but we're running out of time.
I hope you can come back.
Yes, we want you back.
Well, I think that the best way to describe the SPLC is as an extremely effective fundraising machine.
Yeah.
That is able to capitalize on the fears of liberals extremely effectively.
Yeah, and those liberals have a lot of fears, and one of our concerns, Charlotte, but we'll let you go now, is the connection that SPLC has to the United States government as an advisory or subject matter expert. We think that's ridiculous, and our end goal in our investigative series is to put an end to their relationship with the United States government, in fact, this administration,
Exactly.
As experts on anything having to do
And
with
at the
hate.
local level
Completely
as well.
ridiculous, and on the local level.
Yeah.
Charlotte Allen, thank you very much.
Thank you very
CJ,
much. Pleasure to meet you,
myself, say
Charlotte.
goodbye.
It was a pleasure to meet you too as well.
And we'll do more of this in the future. Keep writing.
Yeah.
You do great
Okay,
work.
thanks
Okay.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Charlotte Allen, who wrote a 6,000-word piece in the
Yeah,
Weekly Standard on these
excellent
guys.
Piece, yeah.
That was good.
And do you know what? Do you know what's amazing? In all the interviews that we've done, in all the articles that we've read, everything that we've learned about the SPLC, we still don't know what they're raising all the money for. Do we know?
Well, yes, I know. They actually, on one little place on their website, they said that they know somewhere in the future their donors are going to stop writing them checks. They said when that time comes,
We'll be okay.
Yeah, we want a gigantic war chest so we can go on without the need for donors.
Okay.
Now,
No,
you know,
seriously.
how stupid can people be to
Seriously.
look? I mean, they write that
Well,
stuff.
no, they don't know. I mean, people think, you know,
Honey,
the ACLU, the ADL, people think these are good organizations. People, you know, maybe they were 40 years ago, but they're not now.
honey.
They're rotten to the core.
Oh, CJ, we're not married. I'm unmarried.
Yeah, we're
But-
totally not
Yeah,
married.
right. But honey, did you send the check to SPLC today?
Yeah, that happened.
Can you increase
right
it a little
after
bit?
I picked up the cleaning.
They're fighting. They're fighting the Klan, honey, and we hate the Klan. The Klan is going to take over America.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, all of you, our liberal friends out there, what are you doing? You got him? Our next guest? All right, what we're doing right now is we're picking up right where Charlotte has left off. Charlotte Allen did this investigative article on the SPLC, primarily on the financial side, their extreme capability of raising trillions of dollars. I mean, it really is bizarre. And then even Charlotte, and I didn't get any indication that she knows or has anything to do with Family Research Council other than the professional approach.
Yeah.
But she said, no, there's a connection there. You know, he went to the website and found FRC as an anti-gay group.
A bullseye.
Bullseye, yeah.
Here's how to get there. What other reason would a person have for needing to physically go to the Family Research Council?
Yep. Let's do this. Can we play? Is JP Duffy with us?
He is with us.
JP, are you there? It's Tom Trento.
Hello, Tom. Yes, I'm here.
How you doing? Well, I'm with my co-host CJ. There you are. Hi. Can you see us?
Yes,
Oh,
I can
okay,
see
so
you
We
great.
can see you.
We made it fancy. He can see me. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you can. Can you see CJ?
No.
Yes, I
see
can see
my
both
arm?
of you.
No, he sees both of us,
Oh,
but
he
we're only
does,
putting
but I don't.
we're only putting me up.
Okay.
Camera only likes me.
All right. Well, that's because your nose is so prominent.
I know. But you have to sit over here. Can you put CJ there?
No.
Hold up.
Don't do it.
JP, we just got off the phone with Charlotte Allen, who wrote a great article, and she said, "Hey, Floyd Corkins, he got his information from the SPLC's website. Now, some video came out last night. Can you update that? We have the video here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it? We'll play it, and then you can comment on it. Okay?
Okay.
Go ahead. Tell us about it. Set the video.
You want me to tell? I'm sorry. I thought you were going to play it.
Set
Yes,
it up.
sir. We actually just received this video, interrogation video, from the prosecutors just a couple days ago. And we pulled it up, and I was sitting there watching it. And then there Floyd Corkins was, in his own words, when he was asked by the FBI, he said, "I went to the Southern Poverty Law Center, and that is exactly what motivated me." And that he admitted to that, basically right there. And so we pulled the clip and made that available. And before you knew it, Drudge began to run with it, and it's now spread across the internet. And so now it puts the SPLC on notice. They have now been linked, not just in federal court, to domestic terrorism, but they have now been linked to domestic terrorism by the domestic terrorist himself.
Wow. All right, guys, can we play the video? All right, we're gonna play this video, just like 20 seconds or so, and watch carefully, ladies and gentlemen. This is the FBI questioning Floyd Corkins, and there are captions. If you're watching on TrentoVision.TV, you'll see the copy. If you're listening, it's pretty clear. And once these guys are ready, they let me know. And here we go.
Now, how did you, this building, this organization, how did you find it early? Did you look it up online, or how did you know about it?
Southern Poverty Law lists anti-gay groups, and I found them online.
Okay.
A little bit of research, went to their website and stuff like that.
Okay.
JP,
Okay.
that's pretty clear. You got two FBI agents in the interrogation room, and they ask very nicely.
Yeah, he wasn't being waterboarded.
No waterboarding there. In fact, they were very kind. They seemed like very nice guy. Hey, we're your friend.
Yeah, we're from the federal government, and we're here to help.
And what more do you know about that? Have you seen any more of the tape? JP?
Yes, I've been able to watch a little bit of it, and it really is chilling just to see how nonchalant, really even boastful, he is about his planning of this attack, in which he planned to commit mass murder. I mean, his intent, he had 100 rounds of ammunition in his bag, and his intent, he admitted in that interrogation, his intent was to go further into the building and kill as many people as he possibly could, and then smear a Chick-fil-A sandwich in each of our faces. And really, just thanks to Leo's heroism and really just the hand of the Lord that was on him, just to prompt him to stand up, and he moved to the side, and then to tackle him even after he took a gunshot that shattered his arm. there's no doubt that he saved perhaps my own life and many other of my colleagues' lives.
You were there, that was that August 15th of last year?
That's right, a date I will never forget. I was actually in a meeting with Tony at that very moment when the phone call rang, or the phone rang, and Tony was informed, and I could just tell by the look on his face that something had happened. He rushed to the window, I went with him, and we were just in shock as we saw Leo being pulled out of the building, bloodied, and then we saw the Floyd Corkins follow quickly in handcuffs. We rushed downstairs, and the police and the FBI were already on the scene, and was very proud of Tony as he stood up and showed leadership and led the team in prayer as we prayed both for the suspect or for Floyd Corkins, and then also we prayed for Leo, of course, for his recovery.
Yeah, I was at FRC a couple of months ago for the first time, and went into the lobby. And Leo Johnson, right? That's his last name, Johnson?
Correct.
Yeah, he happened to be there, and I talked to him for a half hour. He related the whole story to me. I saw the bullet holes in the walls of Family Research Council lobby that are still there and in the carpet, and then he rolled up his left sleeve. Leo Johnson, the building manager. The press got it wrong at first. They said he was a security guard. He was the building manager. Yeah. He's a husky, black fellow, lovely guy. But he wasn't a guard. He had no weapons. And he instinctively, when he saw this gun coming up, he charged them. And Corkins pulled the trigger. And Leo, the hero, his there he is right there. We have Leo up on the screen right now for everybody to see. Leo's left arm, CJ, is mangled now. I mean, looks like somebody just broke it in half and glued it back together. It's horrible. He's going to be disabled for life with his left arm. And then as General Boykin, JP, was telling us yesterday, Leo not only was able to get Corkins on the ground, but disarmed him, stood above him with a 9mm, and could have shot him and killed him. But God told Leo, don't shoot him. And he would have had every right in the world, because you don't know what that guy's carrying. You don't know anything. No jury in the free world. Here he is getting on the screen, getting an award from the mayor. He would have had every right in the world to defend himself and everybody in that building. God told him not to shoot. He didn't. And as Boykin said yesterday, and we, FRC, we're the haters, is what he said.
Right.
So pretty amazing. Well, where does all of this go from here, JP?
Well, the sentencing date, as you know, was scheduled for Monday. But as we've heard from a number of sources, is that his defense attorneys wanted to provide some distance between the Boston bombings and this domestic terrorist attack. And frankly, I think as Tony has said, he doesn't blame them. If he was a defense attorney, he'd probably ask for a sentencing delay as well. So now we're looking at something in the 4 to 6 week range. But in the meantime, this video's emerged about the interrogation video, and again, it puts a spotlight back on Southern Poverty Law Center. Why is anybody taking this organization seriously anymore now that they have been directly connected in federal court and by the shooter's own mouth that they've been connected to domestic terrorism? And even after acknowledging that, or after that reality is out there, they still refuse to take Family Research Council off of their target map. So I think it's clear. It appears that that this violence doesn't bother them, and that to me is extremely concerning. And I think at this point, the media, the federal government, no one should take them seriously and rely on them as a source of information whatsoever. Their credibility is ruined.
Yeah, and this is really a fascinating case because we're doing this 5-part investigative expose into the SPLC. This is part 4. Tomorrow we're going to have Andrea Lafferty and Ken from FRC on for the 5th part. But none of us who are free speech advocates want to conclude, and I've heard Tony qualify and clear this up quite a bit, saying, look, SPLC has the right to call us a hate group, all of that. We're not saying they don't have the right to do that. It's, they have free speech, but there is a direct cause and effect relationship to a convicted individual now who's a domestic terrorist. But as Charlotte said, and here's all the issues that need to really be evaluated. As Charlotte said, it's still Floyd Corkins' responsibility to act upon the information that he's been given. There doesn't seem to be any legal violation of the incitement doctrine that the courts have so carefully constructed in order to incite to riot or incite to an event. How are you handling all of that? How are you approaching that, JP? We only got about 2 minutes left here.
Sure. Well, I mean, Tony actually addressed this the day after the shooting. He went out, and even though at that point the evidence had not been revealed that the SPLC was directly connected to this, but I think it was very obvious and very plain, and that's why Tony went forward and said, while Floyd Corkins ultimately bears responsibility for his actions, it's clear that the Southern Poverty Law Center had given a license to him by putting us on this hate group list, which has been used by law enforcement agencies. We've even heard recently about a military trainer using the Southern Poverty Law Center in its training. So in my view, that puts a whole other layer of responsibility on the Southern Poverty Law Center that really no other organization in America has quite that level of responsibility. The fact that they are used as a source by the federal government, law enforcement, and military. Therefore, in the minds of someone like Floyd Corkins, that does give him, in his mind, gave him a license. And the Southern Poverty Law Center, they need to put an end to this type of reckless labeling that is really serving no more to intimidate, to silence, and push those that disagree with their promotion of homosexuality right out of the public sphere. And now that we know that it's direct link to domestic terrorism, the Southern Poverty Law Center should no longer be considered by anybody, least of all the federal government, as a source of any kind of credible information.
Great. CJ, you got about a minute. You had a question?
I just want to make one comment for the people who might not have seen our previous shows. When we're talking about the SPLC being directly linked to domestic terrorism through the attack at the FRC, actually it goes back further than that, because Bill Ayers is already on board at the SPLC, and he's responsible for the Teaching Tolerance program that promotes this radical homosexual agenda that the FRC is opposed to, that is disseminated to over 450,000 school teachers in the United States.
Bills of a feather air together? How's that?
Yeah, unrepentant domestic Pentagon terrorists.
All right. Well, we're coming down to the end of the show here. J.P. Duffy of the Family Research Council, thank you very, very much for being with CJ, myself, and the crew on TrentoVision.tv. We have one more episode, and we will be in touch with you. Take care, JP. Well, CJ, we're coming down to, what do we got, 30 seconds or so left?
Yeah.
Another
I want to remind people
show.
Also from our interview with General Boykin, he said he gave us 3 action items.
Go ahead, real fast.
For people. Contact your local school boards and get SPLC out of your schools. Contact law enforcement. Contact your congressman. Those 3 things.
Thank you, folks. Goodbye. Make sure you do that. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.